Hi guys, welcome to Cooking with Rob. So I'm going to show you a recipe today. It's cinnamon apple pumpkin loaf, and it's one of my recipes to go into the freezer, and I absolutely love this overnight time when I do get a sweet tooth, and it's a healthier option to turn to, and there's a number of different options you can do with this recipe once you've got the finished product, and I'll talk you through those when I will go through the macros and the recipe costs. But until then, let's go through the ingredients. So what do we have here? We have some morn flake oats. We have 100 grams grounded up into a flour, so it's quite fine, and obviously cheaper than if you were to buy oat flour in a health store when it's already done for you. Then we have some wholemeal self-raising flour. We have 1 cup, which measures out to 120 grams. We have 2 eggs. We have 250 grams of pumpkin. Now this is, okay, whole pumpkin in a can. Okay, well, I say whole pumpkin in a can, obviously it's not a whole pumpkin, but it's no added sugar pumpkin. So be careful when you do buy canned pumpkin. There's 2 different types. Okay, one of them has got added sugar in, okay, and it comes in at a lot more calories. So always go for pure pumpkin, and you normally get it from, I think I got mine from Sainsbury's actually, but you can get them, okay, from Whole Foods as well and other health stores. Okay, baking powder, bicarbonate of soda. We have 25 grams of raisins. One of my favorites, if you've ever seen my recipes, ground sweet cinnamon for a bit of flavor. And we have an apple, and then we have obviously equipment here, okay, what we're going to use. So first things first, let's switch on the oven. It goes to 175, okay, and that's preheating whilst we get our bread together. So let me just adjust this for you. Okay, so we've got a big mixing bowl. We're going to put all our dry ingredients in first. So in goes 120 grams of wholemeal flour, 100 grams of oat flour. Now, with the baking powder, we're going to go with 1 teaspoon. And then half a teaspoon of baking soda. Okay. So those are the dries. Just a little bit of cinnamon. Put cinnamon to flavor. I always do cinnamon to flavor. I love cinnamon, but I have measured this out before, and it's around 3 grams. So when I do the calculations of the cost, that's what I've accounted for, 3 grams, and that's what we put in. But do note, obviously, when you do it yourself, depending on the cinnamon, you might have a slight variation in cost, but you're also talking of, you know, probably half a pence. But I just want to be completely transparent. So once you've got all your dries into the bowl, just give it a little mix to stop any clumping. And then what we do, we will get our wets together. So in goes our 2 eggs. Let's get that in the bin. And let's look for our whisk. And then just slowly give a little whisk. And once it's had a good whisk together, before we put that in, my recommendations, I have been caught out by this before. Now it doesn't make too much of a difference, but what I would suggest you do is cut your apple before you mix it together. Okay. And what I just noticed, by having all the ingredients ready to go all at once, when I did it before, it just started to obviously soak up the flour and didn't give it a good texture. Now, when you do cut up your apple, okay, my suggestion would be try to cut it up into small chunks, okay? It just makes it easier when you start slicing your apple up, your loaf up at the end, okay? It just makes it easier to slice it. Then obviously if you've got big chunks, it can take out chunks of the bread with it, and it just makes it slightly easier. But if you do want it chunky, you are more than welcome to. It just makes it slightly harder to slice, that's all. But each as their own, as they say. So you can actually grate it up. I have done that before, but I do prefer it cut up like that. And now that's good to go in. What we do, we mix in our pumpkin and our egg. And then just give it a little stir. God, just the smell of it alone is making me hungry. And I've just had lunch as well. All the joys of having a big appetite. So, just make sure obviously all the flour gets mixed in to our pumpkin and our egg. And you can start to see, okay, sometimes I refer to this as a bread, but it's somewhat between a texture of a bread and a cake. So I'm hesitant to call it bread, but you can call it a bread, because sometimes what you can do with it is obviously put butter if you want, jam, peanut butter, whatever you like on there, and kind of does work out to be similar to how you would eat a slice of bread. I know my family likes to have a slice whilst they have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. My mum likes to have it for breakfast when I make it for her. Mix in the apple, put in our raisins, starting to stiffen up a little bit, which is fantastic. That's what we want. Not if you've trained arms, obviously, that particular day, which I did, aching a little bit. And we're just going to line our tray, okay? This is just obviously a loaf tray. I know they come in different sizes and different shapes. This one is an 8.5 by 4.5, okay? And it's deeper, okay, than most other ones I've seen, which gives it a more kind of more height on the loaf. Okay, if you go for a slightly thinner and longer one, okay, obviously it's not going to have much height, so when you cut it up they're going to be a lot thinner. Okay, and one of the things I love to do with this recipe is make French toast. Okay, and once if it's raised higher rather than longer and smaller, okay, it just gives me a nicer dish when I do make that French toast. I know it might sound a bit bizarre, okay, but it works for me, and that's what I prefer. And it's my recipe, so that's what I'm gonna do. Right, now obviously putting it in your loaf pan, okay, give it a good patting down, making sure it goes in all the corners. Give it a good flatten. Okay, it doesn't make a difference, guys, if it's not overly smooth. Okay, just as you slice it up, you might get uneven slices, that's all, if you don't pat it down. Right. Oh, yummy, yummy. Right, there we go, guys. That's our loaf. We're going to cook it now, okay? So it takes, in my oven, okay, around half an hour. I will come and check on it, okay, at the 30-minute mark, okay, and I will let you see the finished results, and then we will talk through, okay, the macros. Let me just take this off. The macros, the price of the dish, and as always, obviously I'll break it down even further on my website, and I'll give you some ideas of what I do with this, because there are quite a lot of different things you can do with it, and it's quite versatile. This is why I like having it in the freezer. It just gives you options, okay, when you do get a sweet tooth, or if you just fancy a little snack, okay, whenever you like, whatever time of the day. Okay, so guys, I will see you in a bit. Take care. Okay, welcome back, peeps. So it's been half an hour. Let's quickly check on our loaf. Right. Stand back. Okay. So I haven't had a chance to check on it yet, but that's perfect. Okay, that is absolutely perfect, and it's been dead on half an hour. Okay, so that is our loaf, okay, our cinnamon apple pumpkin loaf. And what I'll do, guys, is let this cool down for maybe 20 minutes or so, and then come back. We'll slice it up together and chat about the macros and the price of the actual recipe. And I'll also give you a couple of kind of different things I tend to do with this once it's obviously cooled down and I fancy a treat. Okay, so I will see you shortly. Hello everyone, welcome back. So we have our finished products. So shortly after we left each other last time, I got it out the tin and just started it cooling on the rack, and it's been around 45 minutes to an hour. So it's still a little bit warm, and ideally I would like to have let it cool down a little bit more, but time is of the essence and I've got to go out to pick up my son from school. So I'm going to cut it up and we'll talk nutritional information as well as the cost of the recipe and some different things you can do with it. Now, let's just slice it up. The crust I always keep just as a extra bit, because obviously it's not going to be as big as the other slices I'm going to get from this loaf. And when you see the costings, I didn't actually cost it out per slice, because sometimes I prefer, okay, to have it slightly thicker if I'm going to make something like French toast. Sometimes I have it slightly thinner. It really depends on what I am making this for, or what the intentions are, and then I take it from there. But generally speaking, I get around 10 to 12 bits. I'll leave that slightly bigger, the end of the crust. So you can see here 5, 10, so 12 slices, obviously 10 taken out the crust, and that obviously can differentiate every time I do it. But you can see, guys, how amazing this looks. Okay, you can see it is absolutely gorgeous, and this is why you can probably tell, okay, how dense it looks. Okay, you can see maybe a little bit of the steam coming off it. I don't like calling it bread, although, okay, sometimes what you do with it can be very similar to what you would do with bread. I toast this. Okay, it does take, if you do toast it, it does take a little bit longer than normal bread, purely and simply because it is a little bit denser because of the oat flour. But also as well, I love to make French toast with it. Sometimes I make a protein smoothie and just have a couple of slices on the side with my smoothie. Sometimes I make protein fluff. Sometimes I make Greek yogurt. Sometimes I just have fruit on the side. It really depends. And the reason why I'm saying all these different recipes is because, or different things you can do with it, is because I mentioned before about if I want a sweet treat, then I would go for this. And you're probably thinking, well, it isn't very sweet. Apart from the apple, there's no sugar in it, there's no syrup, there's no honey, there's no stevia, there's no anything in it. So why am I calling it a sweet treat? Is because those types of things I mentioned often come in a sweet form. Okay, if I make a Greek yogurt bowl, I'll put things like, for example, coconut, shaved coconuts, toasted coconuts, almonds, fruits, banana, and I put honey over it. If I make this sweet, okay, it will change the types of foods I can put with it, and I often pair this with something sweet. So I make this, okay, as little sweet as possible, okay, apart from I forgot to put raisins in there, so apple and raisins. That also as well, okay, does seem to satisfy my sweet tooth. I've mentioned before, if you've seen some of my recipes, I don't have much of a sweet tooth. So this satisfies my sweet tooth, and so does fruit. So I don't really need anything more. If you want to make it sweeter, you can, okay, just put a teaspoon of honey, maybe some stevia, or even some Walden Farms low calorie, zero sugar maple syrup. That's often quite good as well, okay, to add to it. So guys, when it comes down to the macronutrients and the costs, you can see for yourself here, okay, calories for the whole loaf is 1,148.1, protein just over 40 grams, carbs 188, fat just under 20 grams, and the cost for the whole thing comes out at 260 rounded up. Okay, that's rounded up. So you can see I split it up into 12 slices. Okay, so under 100 calories per slice, and you can figure out the rest. Okay, and the cost is just around 22-23 pence per slice. Now, I mentioned before, okay, let me just take this off. I do often, or most often should I say, pair this with making it into a French toast. And when I do make French toast, because I've got whole eggs in the recipe, I will make that with egg whites. So it comes out fantastically well, and I'll put some Greek yogurt over the top, and maybe some cacao nibs and toasted coconut and a little bit of honey. So as I say, this is one of the reasons why I don't make it too sweet. But if you do, feel free to add, okay, some kind of sweet flavor to it, and note that it will alter the nutritional information as well as the cost. Now, this again, okay, is something I will wrap up, put it in the freezer. I wish I could eat it now, but unfortunately I am due to quickly leave shortly after this to go and pick up my son. And also as well, I've made it specifically to put in the freezer for later on in the week, where I can use it as a good carb up meal the night before a heavy lifting session. Okay, but you don't have to, it's perfectly okay. You can see for yourself at just under 100 calories per slice. You can have it for breakfast, you can have it for a snack, you can have it however you want. I've mentioned before, at my local farm shop, they have zero sugar jam, okay, and it's lovely. It's got, I say zero sugar, I think it's close to zero, but it does have fruit, fresh fruit in there, and I think it's something like 88% fruit, okay, inside the jam. So that's one of my go-tos to lather on this, and yeah, enjoy it as a little snack towards the end of the night. And like I say, that's my pre-workout meal for when I get up and I am ready to rock, okay, fully fueled for that workout. So guys, I hope you enjoy it. Please feel free to drop me any questions, any comments, and if you want anything, I've mentioned before, if you want any recipes for something in particular, maybe there is a type of food or a dish that you wish you could eat more in your diet, but you optionally don't do that or consume that because it's considered unhealthy or it's too calorific for your diet, drop me a line and tell me that particular dish, and I will do my best to try and create a healthier version of that so you can have something similar to that dish in your diet more often without the guilt, okay, of all those extra calories. I will happily do that if I can, so drop me a line, don't be shy. If you want to message me privately instead of commenting publicly, then feel free to do it, okay? Don't forget to subscribe, guys. I've got some fantastic recipes coming up, so subscribe to make sure that you get notified of when those recipes get released. Until then, take care, guys. All the best.